education. Up with education. Down with deportation. Up with education.
Just when you think things cannot get any worse for Kamala Harris, something else happens. And that something is 3 polls that dropped today from Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia showing that Trump is ahead. But what's a bigger deal is the demographic that she's losing support on, and that is the Latinos. So what we're going to do is react to these polls and show you why this is more bad news for Kamala Harris. Let's start here.
Look, you got a lot of red on the screen. This is pretty good news for Donald Trump. This is the Harris versus Trump margin, unrounded margin. Look at this. In Arizona, Donald Trump up 5. In Georgia, up 4, though no clear leader. North Carolina, a similar story. Donald Trump up 3. Again, no clear leader. But you take it all together in these 3 key battleground states, 2 of which Joe Biden carried 4 years ago, we see that Donald Trump is ahead, and by an average of 4 points, significantly better than he did back in 2020 across all of these states.
I am old enough to remember last Tuesday, Wednesday,
it might have been,
when there was New York Times Siena battleground polling from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan that was all blue.
Yes, there was that polling from Pennsylvania. We had that other polling that essentially showed that Kamala Harris was doing very well in the Great Lakes. And this, to me, seems to be the increasing divide amongst these swing states. These are the averages in the polls, right? Take a look in the Great Lakes. Harris up 2, Wisconsin, Harris up 2, Pennsylvania, Harris up 2. Again, close races, but blue, not red. You jump over here with me to the Sun Belt battleground. Says you see a little blue at the top in Nevada, +1. We don't have any new polling from there. But you look at North Carolina, Trump up by less than a point. Arizona in the average, Trump up by 2. Georgia, Trump up by 2 in the average. So in the Sun Belt battlegrounds, more red than blue, predominantly red. In the Great Lake battlegrounds, predominantly, in fact, all blue. And this is going to be the divide I'm going to be looking at going forward, which is, do we continue to see that Kamala Harris does better in these Great Lake battleground states than she does in these Sun Belt battlegrounds?
Now, what he's not mentioning to you that I definitely want to make you clear on is that in the Great Lakes section, which is really known as the Rust Belt, those are actually great polling numbers for Donald Trump, because Joe Biden on average was up by 6, if not 8 points in the Rust Belt area, and he barely won by an average of 1 point. So if Trump continues to overperform in the election, those numbers are actually bad for Kamala Harris. She needs to be up even more than 2 points. Now, these numbers overall are not good for Kamala Harris. She needs to be building a wider lead, right? A larger lead from Trump. And if she fails to do that, which she has up to this point, Trump is going to be the next president unless something happens that we are not seeing. Let's continue.
I just look at the New York Times Siena poll that came out today, and there are still some long-term warning signs for the Harris campaign. The economy, immigration, cost of living issues are all at the top of mind of voters, and Donald Trump continues leading on all of those issues. That is something everyone is focused on. And part of the reason is that, she doesn't want to do interviews, she doesn't want to risk campaign. The economy, immigration, cost of living issues are all at the top of mind of voters, and Donald Trump continues leading on all of those issues. That is something everyone is focused on. And part of the reason is that, she doesn't want to do interviews, she doesn't want to really outline any of her policy positions. 60 to 70% of this country believes we are on the wrong track. And 60 to 70% of this country believes we are on the wrong track. People know Donald Trump. They know his policies. That's why he's doing fairly well in these polls. They don't know a lot about Kamala Harris. And so I think he's speaking to these issues which affect all Americans across the board.
Now, after a couple of clips, me and you will look at this exact poll in detail, because there's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention that you might enjoy and feel reassured about where Trump is in the current election. Now, the points that he just made are spot on. This is what I've been saying, is Donald Trump's election to lose. He has the advantage. The only thing she truly has is reproductive rights. That's it. And personality. Are those 2 things enough for her to win the election? I don't believe so, especially when you hear her surrogates respond this way. Listen to this.
Well, Lance, I just fundamentally disagree with that. The fact of the matter is, when you talk about concepts of a plan, or when you talk about drill, baby, drill, or no one can pin down where you stand on issues like IVF and others. And the fact is, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have been on the record agreeing that they will criminalize a woman for making their own healthcare decisions. Most people, including Republicans, cannot articulate one single issue that Donald Trump stands for when it comes to everyday Americans. When have we heard from the former president about his plan on housing? When have we heard from him about a plan on work, wages, and wealth? We've heard from him on the fact that he wants to undo the Affordable Care Act. We've also heard from him that he thinks somehow or another there are Black Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, who are eating cats and dogs. That's not a plan. That's not something the American people care about. But on the other hand, the journey for Kamala Harris, this woman of color, is twice as hard, half as much, and somehow or another this minimally adequate standard for the former president seems to be okay in the Republican Party.
Okay, did you understand anything that he just said? Let me tell you what was clear about his statement, okay, is that they hate Trump, and that is their message. Their message is more about Trump than it is about everyday Americans. And again, I call that a mistake. In fact, I call it insanity almost. They think that's what's going to win this election. They keep ignoring the messaging that will resonate with everyday Americans who don't care what your party affiliation is. They just want things to be better. They're missing that completely because they focus so much on Trump. And that's why his talking points, none of them were true. And he can't defend the fact that she hasn't participated in any interviews. She's only done a total of 3, technically. Donald Trump has done more interviews than her and Tim Walz combined. So, you know, it's not a good look when the candidate themselves are not good. And then your surrogates have to go onto the news and play cover for you because what do you have except Donald Trump is bad? That's not going to win the election.
There are 43 days left.
Yeah.
I know Harris is giving a big economic speech this week, but what's left to change minds at this point?
Yeah, the debate part is really important because debates are an inflection point in a campaign and they get people to tune in. They both need a new debate, another debate. Donald Trump needs something to sort of change the momentum, and Kamala Harris still has to introduce herself to people. We're hearing that over and over again from swing state voters. They don't know her enough. So they should both want another debate. But the swing state voters we're talking to are really telling us they are still undecided because they know exactly who Donald Trump is. They still have questions about Kamala Harris.
They're not undecided about him.
Correct.
They're undecided about her.
Correct. And so they might stay home. They might vote third party. But they are wanting to hear more from Kamala Harris. And
about what?
About she has identified the correct problems, they say. They don't have enough specifics on the solutions, both politically and practically. What would she do to solve X problem, inflation, for example, and how would she get Congress to go along with it? These are two things that American voters, they're not stupid. They see as real political realities and problems, and they want to know more.
Okay, so half the stuff she said I don't believe if you just look at the numbers, but let's take her word for it, okay? That's bad news. If undecided voters decide to stay home and vote third party, those votes are being taken away from Kamala Harris, not Donald Trump. So that's not good. And I'm telling you, this election is about policy versus personality. There are going to be people who won't vote for Donald Trump because they hate him. Why do they hate him? I don't know. They hate him because they were told to hate him. They were programmed to hate Donald Trump. He's one of the most hated political figures in the modern era. Right? I mean, what he's had to endure, I don't think many people can. So it's no secret that there are going to be people who don't vote for him. That's fine, because the real indictment is that they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris because she's not going to give them what they want. They want specifics. They want clarity. That's not who Kamala Harris is. And the only reason why she's been this successful up to this point without experiencing the same disastrous poll numbers that Joe Biden did is because she hasn't been clear. She's been very vague and broad and not really drilling down on anything. And of course, she has the full weight of the corporate media suppressing negative information about her and promoting positive information. So obviously that helps, of course. But the numbers don't lie. The proof is in the pudding. And when you see what these polls are saying about her, it does lead to disastrous results for her on election day. The numbers continue to show that Donald Trump is moving in the right direction. And so as you see, he's got 5% lead in Arizona, 4% lead in Georgia, and 2% lead in North Carolina. And the interesting thing about those numbers, it proves how the debate actually impacted voters' mindsets around these two candidates. Because if you look here, how have the polls changed since the debate? On the left side is the margin pre-debate, and on the right side is the margin post-debate. Bottom line is you see a lot of red. Okay, so what does that tell you? It tells you that Trump won the debate. But let's drill down even further. Do you think Donald Trump's policies have helped people like you, hurt people like you, or haven't had much of a difference either way? Donald Trump comes in at 45%, whereas Kamala Harris comes in at 37%. So, and finally, this is where the bottom line is, right? If the 2024 presidential election were held today, who would you vote for? We already know that Donald Trump is leading by 4 percentage points on average. And what I want to show you guys is the demographic part that really matters. So Donald Trump is getting 10% of the black vote, which is still good because she's only getting 83. I tell you guys all the time, she needs to be in the 90s. She isn't. Also, Hispanic wise, she's down to 52%. Now, historically, Democratic presidential nominees have gotten the Latino vote 60% or higher. So she's lost a lot of ground as it pertains to that. And Donald Trump, as a Republican, is getting a Latino vote at a higher clip than any of the past Republican nominees over the past 3 decades. And he's at 40%. So that is a big deal. That definitely spells disaster for her campaign, of course. And these are not the same numbers you were seeing from Donald Trump in 2020 or 2016. And I think the biggest factor to why she's the worst Democratic polling nominee to run against Donald Trump is just the lack of how authentic she really is. She isn't. She's as fake as they come. And every single week, there seems to be a video that surfaces showing the flip-flopping and how fake she really is around these issues that she's trying to get people to believe her on, like immigration and mass deportation. She's trying to tell people that she's for that now. But then this clip resurfaces. Watch this.
Down with deportation. Up with education. 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 Down with deportation. Up with education.
All right, 2 things in regards to that video. Number 1, did you hear how they were pronouncing her name? Kamala. Kamala. I find that to be interesting. The second thing is down with deportation, up with either the word education or agitation. I cannot confirm either way. But what we do know is clearly she's not for deportation. She's clearly not for law and order as it pertains to illegal migrants that are coming across the border. And I don't understand why she just can't say, if they are criminals, I will get them out of this country. Isn't that a simple thing to say? I mean, I don't see how that would make the Democratic base concerned, but hey, that's common sense. And I think the Democratic Party are allergic to that. So final points for you guys. This is great news for Donald Trump. These are the best polling numbers he's had as a presidential candidate in all 3 presidential cycles. When you see that he's up in the Sun Belt states, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, it just shows you that the debate did not have an actual positive impact as it pertains to Kamala Harris. It didn't. It actually had a better impact for Trump because what people did is they probably saw the clips. They probably didn't listen to the fake news media, and they went back and watched it when they had their time. And when you're not watching it in the moment, it's different when you watch it after the fact. And so that's why the numbers are showing what they are showing. And so overall, Donald Trump is in a great position to win this election, especially if you factor in the polling errors that occurred in 2016 and 2020. The other point, too, is that Kamala Harris is not an authentic candidate, and it's showing in the polling, as you guys have seen. And so how do they combat that? How do they get around it? Well, they make sure that she's not doing unscripted interviews, And they doubled down on Trump is bad. He's a threat to democracy, and he's going to violate women's rights. He's going to take away women's rights. That's what the Democrat Party have been very effective at doing, is convincing people to say, well, I want my daughters to grow up in a country where they have rights. No one has taken the rights away from your daughters. No one has taken the rights away from your women. What are you talking about? We still have a constitution. If rights were taken away from women, it would be up at the Supreme Court right now, and they'd be discussing it, debating it, and ruling on it. It hasn't happened. So I find it interesting that that is the rhetoric they chose to run with, but I do not think it's a rhetoric that is going to take them over the finish line. So that's my opinion. What's yours? What do you guys think about this new update today? How it spells disaster for Kamala Harris. You see how she's losing the Latino vote. She's underperforming in that area. And of course, her surrogates are going to make excuses and try to tell people that Trump is bad. But we know that it really isn't going to work this time around, because the economy and inflation is impacting everyone. What do you think about all that? Put your answers in the comment section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.